Hello out there, legal warriors. Have you ever wondered when the use of force is lawful in Washington State? When does self-defense apply? When are other times you can use force? If you're interested in that area of the law, if you ever wondered, stay tuned because this is the video for you. My name is Lance Fryrear, and I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes for more than 20 years, and I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find this useful, please like and please subscribe. More people will get the help they need. I'm just going to jump right into it. Use of force. So we think about that in Washington State as self-defense. When can I use force to defend myself? But there's a statute, which we'll link to in the comments, that also talks about other areas where someone can use force against another person and have it be lawful. Okay, and so there is no black and white is the most important thing to remember. You know, there's arguments to be made on one side and arguments to be made on the other. So in this video, I'm going to try to jump into three things. One, what is self-defense? When can it be used? How can it be used? Two, what are some other areas of the law where force can be legally used? And three, what are the pointers you need to keep in mind if you're ever having discussed with law enforcement why you used force against somebody. So let's just start right out. Number one, self-defense. Well, what does self-defense mean? Well, self-defense is typically going to be used if somebody gets charged with some type of assault crime. Assault in the fourth degree, a gross misdemeanor, or higher levels of assault, 3, 2, or 1, which are felonies. And self-defense is a defense that needs to be asserted by the person charged with the crime, a defendant, and someone's going to need to testify to facts that would establish a claim of self-defense. So almost always the defendant's going to have to testify then, because usually there's not going to be another witness to most assaults. And the interesting thing is you don't have to prove self-defense. The state or the prosecuting entity has to prove lack of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. So self-defense basically means you can use reasonable force to defend yourself, your property, or another person or another person's property. And so that's what it comes down to, was the force reasonable that somebody used, and was it necessary? I think I saw a question in one of our videos just yesterday. Someone posted a question in the comments that, hey, can I use a gun in a fist fight? Well, I think that no one can answer that question for sure, but I would be pretty worried about using a gun in a fist fight. While an argument can be made that fist fights can end up killing you, obviously it's going to be the law enforcement's perception about what was reasonable in the overall totality of the circumstances for someone who brings a gun to a fist fight. Similarly, if someone is about to throw water on you, which is an assault, it may not be reasonable to use a knife to stab them to stop them from throwing water because, unless you're the Wicked Witch of the West and you're going to melt from the water, probably that water wasn't going to harm you in the same way that a stabbing would harm somebody. So it's about proportionality and reasonability. Reasonableness. Also, if you are facing a situation, a good argument can be made that someone who starts the fight isn't able later to use self-defense. Case law varies on that, but who starts the fight can matter. If you start beating someone up and they start beating you up worse and now you beat them up back, well, that first part, you started it in that case, and that would not be self-defense. So the best time you want to use a self-defense case is when, you're using your shoving or hitting or something like that to stop someone from doing the same to you. And they don't actually have to have hit you before you could necessarily defend yourself if they're about imminently to hit you, or they have a reputation of the type of person that attacks people when they get mad, and then it's more reasonable for you to use some type of force to defend yourself. But the most important thing is sort of a balancing. It's sort of a matter of opinion of law enforcement and prosecution. So when it comes to self-defense, it is not black and white. What are some other areas, number two, that we can jump into where force can be used under the statute? Well, one area is if you're a shopkeeper, right? You're working in a store and someone's trying to run off with some property. The law would say that storekeeper is able to use reasonable force to detain or stop that person from leaving. Now, a lot of stores may have rules that don't allow them to do that for civil liability reasons, but under the law, that could be argued that, hey, the shopkeeper should not get charged with assault for trying to tackle someone running out the target with whatever they've attempted to steal. Similarly, if someone is trespassing on your property, you may be able to use reasonable force to stop them from trespassing on your property. It's not a good idea to try to physically throw them off the property. It's a good idea to, maybe detain them in some way and then call the police, because most of the time from what we see, police do not like self-help. Police do not like a person removing another person from their property by force. There's an argument that could be allowed, but usually what we see is that ending in an arrest of the person using the force, which is sort of messed up, isn't it? Finally, I think another area where we can use force is to stop someone from fleeing from a felony. That can be used at times. Law enforcement can use force. There's also a provision in the statute that allows force to be used to stop a mentally incapacitated person, someone who's sort of having a schizophrenic or some other type of mental breakdown, or maybe they're not seeing reality, to try to stop them from harming someone else or harming themselves. The interesting question is, what about if someone's drunk, right? We see that case all the time. You've got the loved one who is angry and they're super drunk and now they're going to go try and drive. Can you stop that person from trying to drive? Can you grab them to stop them from harming themselves? Are they mentally incapacitated? Well, oftentimes we can see someone get charged with a crime when they're trying to stop the drunk person from driving. It doesn't seem fair, but oftentimes the officers don't look at it that, hey, you're allowed to stop someone physically from driving drunk, if at least the police are called and saying, hey, this person assaulted me when I was just trying to leave. And that segues pretty smoothly into some pointers. If you have had to use force on somebody and now the police are asking you about it, it's vitally important that you get your side of the story out with you being fair to yourself. Okay? You need to really make it clear why it is you had to use the force. In a pushing fight or a fist fight or something, you have to say, hey, the other party was hitting me. The other party was striking me. I only hit them to stop them from attacking me. I did not retaliate against them. I did not start it. I was very scared and fearful, and that is why I took the minimum action that I could to stop the assault against me. And think about that drunk driving case, that loved one who's trying to leave. You can say, you really want to make it clear that they were incoherent, that from your experience, they were so drunk that you were forced to stop them because they were going to harm themselves. You need to use those words, right? Get it in the officer's mind, because they are not going to typically go out of their way to try to see things your way if they're already imagining you as the suspect. So make it very clear about why it is you needed to do what you did, why you were afraid for yourself, why you were afraid for this other person trying to leave, why you needed to stop the trespasser, and how you did as little as you possibly could force-wise to make that stop. Another thing that we see is pepper spray, right? It's wildly varied about how law enforcement looks at pepper spray, but if you find yourself used pepper spray for someone, you really have to step up your explanation, right? I was afraid because this person threatened to hit me, because they pointed at me, because they did this, that they approached me in this aggressive way. Whatever it is, don't skimp on the details about why you felt it necessary to use pepper spray. They looked funny. They looked like they might do something. That's not going to be good enough. You're going to get charged with a crime. And I've seen some pepper spray cases get arrested for a felony assault because of the long-lasting effects of pepper spray. So we have a video on that, so be careful. But the practice pointer is, if you're being investigated for touching someone, for hitting someone, it was self-defense, it could be one of the few times where it's a good idea to talk to the police and get out your explanation now about why you needed to do what you needed to do. So recapping, self-defense, if you're charged, that's something that you can assert to the prosecution. They have to prove the lack of it. You can actually recover some attorney's fees in some cases if you win by self-defense. And then for the rest of it, you can defend yourself. In self-defense, you can stop people from, getting on your property. You can stop people from, stealing stuff, and you can stop people from hurting themselves for the most part. But remember, always try to get law enforcement involved if you're on those last things, because they look at also how long a detention was and things like that to see if your actions were reasonable. So if you find this video useful, please like and please subscribe. More people will get the help they need. More importantly, if you have a charge, you're dealing with something in Washington State, and you need help, feel free to give my office a call. We've been doing this for more than 20 years. We'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.